is still going to happen exactly as scheduled. That being said, though, I have spoken with our friend Pastor Mejia, and he's very concerned about his church right now, and he asked me if I would allow him to not attend so that he could deal with his church and the situation, because we had offered for him to be here with us not only for the conference but for an entire week. And that's a very long time to be away from his church, and he just feels like he would like to talk with his church and deal with a lot of issues that they have and help people. And so he asked me, and I said that I agree. And so I am allowing him to be with his church. We are still great friends. There's nothing in between us whatsoever. And God willing, we'll reschedule and have their family out here at another time to fellowship with them and everything like that. But that being said, all of the events for our conference are still scheduled moving forward, and I'm very excited about this. There's a lot of stuff that we want to do, and again, our conference is for the children. It's not for us anyways, and we want to encourage them and help them want to love the Lord better. Additionally, I want to say that I've made a private announcement last week to the church. I had made a public video about one of our friends, Pastor Stephen Anderson. And everything that I said in our meeting prior to and in that video, I was very sincere and expressing to you everything that I believed and everything that I knew at that time. Unfortunately, since then, my position has slightly changed on how I feel about Pastor Anderson dealing with the situation. And I want to address that. Now, I want to say several things, and then I'm going to allow people to express their opinion if they have a different opinion here or whatever. Number one, I want to say this too. No matter what someone's opinion is in the situation dealing with our friend Pastor Anderson, I am going to be gracious to them. And I know that in this room we have wildly different opinions right now. And that's okay. And I think that we all need to be gracious to everyone, regardless of what position or feeling they have towards him and towards our friend. And of course, we are an independent Baptist church, so we are our own church, and we need to worry about our church primarily, and we need to love each other in this room more than anyone outside of this room. That being said, Pastor Anderson has only ever done good to me personally, and he's only ever helped Steadfast Baptist Church, and therefore, I very much love him, appreciate him, and that's never going to change. Okay. I do personally believe that at this time, though, it would be best for him to either take a leave of absence or step down as pastor and focus on his family. That being said, I'm not going to personally attack him, preach against him, or do anything like that. I just want to let you guys know first, because of the fact that I have taken a public stand already. Now, the reason why I did that is because we had a children's conference coming up very soon that he was scheduled to preach at. And I think for most people, they were going to ask a lot of questions. It was going to be something that we needed to decide what we were going to do. I had already asked him prior to this and prior to all that situation just to not come, just so as there wouldn't be any controversy. But additionally, since then, I've learned more information, and I kind of changed my opinion on the situation. And I want to give you my opinion about the situation, but the reason why I've changed my mind is not based on any specific accusation or anything. It's just simply on facts that I know. And here's the facts that I know. Number one is that his 4 oldest children are attacking him and against him. Okay? That includes his oldest, Solomon, Isaac, John, and Miriam. And I know Solomon because I personally talked to him about this. Okay? Additionally, I believe that when he made videos about his brother, that was inappropriate. And it wasn't so much, some people say he was doxing his brother, which is true. I don't think that I personally don't really have a lot of fault for someone doxing their brother in this situation, even though it's illegal, but more about the timing. Because the thing is Pastor Anderson's oldest daughter, who's 17, was staying with her family, wouldn't come home, and he's been dealing with that situation. But she has tried to avoid his presence and stayed away from him, will not contact the family. Now, unfortunately, he already could not get her to come home and had already gone out there multiple times with police, and she was staying away from him, like physically, a month ago. And so I believe someone who genuinely cared about their parent, or their kid, and was putting out a public statement for help would have done so right away. If you believe your kid was kidnapped, I do not believe you would wait a month to tell people or ask people for help. That being said, additionally, him and his family are both publicly attacking each other right now. And I believe that that is a huge distraction from the cause of Christ, and it's causing unnecessary strife and hatred for brethren. And there are good people on both sides of this issue right now. And what is really saddening for me is how these people are attacking each other. Now here's the thing, everything I just said is a fact. It is not my opinion, it is not something that I speculated, it's just stuff that I know to be absolutely true, and that's what I'm basing my decision on, okay? Other things though, here's just my personal opinion. I feel like unfortunately there's been a lack of care or concern for his children throughout this based on the conversations I've had with him one-on-one. Additionally, there has been some inconsistent testimony between him and his wife in the private communications that I've had. Additionally, I personally believe that he's invoked God several times in a need to persuade, saying statements like, "As God is my witness," and in a private conversation with me saying, "I would stand before God right now and say I've done nothing wrong." And that disturbed me. Now he says that, well, the Bible says God is my witness in Romans chapter 1 with the Apostle Paul. Maybe I'm wrong in that interpretation, so I'm saying this is my personal opinion, but I felt like that was alarming. He's made no specific refutation video to address the issues, and this is uncharacteristic for him. When he and I were dealing with the Adam Fannin situation, the Donnie Romero situation, his Tyler Baker situation, or even questions about his ordination, he made long, specific refutation videos to address all of those issues. What he's done so far is uncharacteristic. I've talked to him multiple times, and I had a recent conversation with him to try to address what I'm saying to you right now. He did not want to have the conversation with me. He was unwilling to discuss this, and he said very alarming things to me. One of those is being that he's going to burn it all down, whatever that means. I'm not changing my stance towards him. I'm still his friend, and I will not abandon him in one of his darkest hours, period. With that being said, my personal stance on the situation has changed. Regarding the allegations being made against him for his children, by his children, I am still going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And another thing that's for sure, his children have been inconsistent in the things that they said. Many of the things that they've told me, I have checked with other witnesses and other individuals and found them to not be true. Some of the things they said, I have found to be true. It is a mixed bag, okay? But at the end of the day, I'm not going to base my decisions on he says, she says, and a lot of controversy. Because unfortunately, I've had to deal with a lot of conflict between people, and it's almost impossible to ever know what's true in any of those situations. It's very frustrating, and everybody has their own perspective and own viewpoint, and it's almost impossible to know what's going on. And I did have a phone conversation with his son John, where I was trying to encourage him to try to reconcile with his parents, regardless of what's going on with his church. Because I just don't want kids and parents to be at odds with one another. In that conversation, John was very adversarial to me. He lied to me. He had flattered me. He was deceiving me. And he tried to cherry pick some of the statements I made online and put them out there to frame them in a particular context. But as I was trying to level with him and try to explain things to him from where I'm coming from, I made statements like, nothing you're saying is contradictory to what your parents' testimony is, or other things like that. And again, what I'm meaning by context like that is saying, look, you're both telling me situations that have happened, but you're coming at them from completely different perspectives. you both are using different terminology and language about these things, and I don't know exactly what's true. I don't know what's the right way to look at these or frame them, but that does not mean that anything I've said or anything that I've done has contradicted public statements or anything. Everything that I've said publicly has been 100% true, and I'm not changing anything that I said publicly, except for the fact that I've changed my mind. Of course, I've changed my mind. I have more information at this point in time. In the public video I made, I said, if I'm wrong, time will tell. So I didn't say, and I said, people that have a different opinion than me, I can respect their opinion. Not the slander and railing that they're doing, but I can understand their perspective. I think on both sides of this issue, you have a lot of people making wild, crazy, slanderous, false accusations. And I really, really hate that. I really, really hate that. And I think that's confusing the matter. I am going to have grace for all sides of this issue. That does not mean I wouldn't deal with slander or railing in specific situations, especially dealing with our church. But I will have grace for all sides. I want to say, regarding the accusations, though, I'm still going to give Pastor Anderson the benefit of the doubt. I do believe that his children have been exaggerative and deceitful about the things that they said, and I think it would be extremely unwise for anybody to latch on to the statements that they've made. In my conversation with Pastor Anderson, I'm going to just tell you what he told me, and this is what I told John, and it does not contradict anything they said in the video. I said, did you use an electrical cord as a form of punishment? He said yes. He said that when they were 10, 11, 12, they were making fun of the punishment not hurting. And so he chose to use a different instrument for a period of time. I don't know exactly the amount of time, a few years or something like that. From his perspective, he said it was moderate discipline. I decided to believe him for that testimony. The things that Solomon, Isaac, and John have said corroborate that as being true. And even some of the statements that they've said were things like, I deserve the punishment that I got, or it was a certain amount of time. While I personally do not recommend and would not suggest or encourage anybody to use that instrument, I will not personally condemn someone just for the instrument they used. And I don't believe that the instrument was necessarily what the children are even complaining about. They're complaining about the method, how, when, and things like that. Additionally, I asked him one question. I said, do you practice spousal discipline? And he said, whatever I do is consensual between me and my wife. And I asked no other questions. Okay? Whatever that means, I have no idea. And I will never know, and I never want to know. Okay? If you disagree with me on that, I just simply wanted to ask the question. And I will continue to give him whatever the benefit of the doubt is on the situation. Whenever this is probably months and months ago, I had been entertaining a sermon idea called Unruly Wives, where I was trying to decide what is the best course of action when you have a wife that's not being very obedient. And in that sermon, I was going to say specifically that I strongly disapprove of and do not agree with spousal discipline, but I cannot condemn it. And that is my personal opinion, and it still has not changed. But at the end of the day, I did talk with Pastor Anderson about this prior to any of this happening. And I felt like by me even talking about this subject, it was not going to be edifying or beneficial or help anyone. And so I decided to avoid preaching on that topic. If you want to ask me a question on that, I will be willing to ask you, or be willing to answer any question. If there was any abuse, I would not cover that up, and I would not try to stop Pastor Anderson, or like have Pastor Anderson continue while trying to cover abuse. That's ridiculous. That's not something I would ever do. I've never done that. I think there's plenty of evidence that I've dealt with really uncomfortable situations, including even filing police reports on our own church members that I like and care about. So, if you this, when the word abuse is thrown around, everybody has a different definition of that. And I really don't like the virtue signaling of I'm against abuse, because I've never met a person in my life that says I'm for abuse. Okay? So you can continue to say like I'm against abuse, and that sounds good, but everyone in the world agrees with you. What that means is important. People get mad about trying to decide what that word means, but it's important considering everyone literally agrees with that statement. So I have tried to, in my conversations with everyone, make sure I really understand what they're trying to say. And so, that being said, I think it's really important for us to focus on our church, because that's the reason why we're an independent fundamental Baptist church. Notice that's the first word even in what we describe ourselves as. And the reality is, no matter what my opinion is, or your opinion is, we can really only affect our immediate situation. We can only affect our family, our church, and of course, the internet causes us to have some relationships from afar, and I'm not against the internet. We need to be careful that we're not damaging the relationships that we have in real life, in our daily lives, in our physical presence for some internet relationship. I want you to go some places in the Bible with me this morning. Go to 1 Corinthians chapter number 3. I also believe that we should be praying for this situation, that whatever God wills will happen. Amen. And I have so much confidence in the Lord, no matter what's going on, that He is going to be faithful, that I think that we should never be discouraged, because our church has gone through so many trials that we should be the last of people to doubt that the Lord will help us no matter what the situation is.
Good.
Now, the Bible says in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 3, it says, "For ye are yet carnal. For whereas there is among you envying and strife and divisions, are ye not carnal and walk as men? For while one saith, I am of Paul, and another, I am of Apollos, are ye not carnal? Who then is Paul, and who is Apollos, but ministers by whom ye believe, even as the Lord gave to every man?" The Bible's very clear that Christianity should not devolve into personalities. And that does not mean you cannot have a favorite preacher. That does not mean you can't have a favorite church. That does not mean that you can't prefer or like somebody over another. But at the end of the day, we should not base our Christianity on a personality, period. Right. That includes me, that includes Steadfast Baptist Church, and that includes anybody that we like. I believe that there's many people in our church who, if they were honest, they would say, my favorite pastor or preacher is Pastor Anderson. I'm sure many would say Pastor Roger Jimenez is their favorite pastor or preacher. I'm sure many people would say Pastor Bruce Mejia is their favorite pastor or preacher. I wouldn't even be surprised if many people in here think their favorite pastor or preacher is people that have nothing to do with our movement, or a local pastor somewhere else. And you know what? I think that that's healthy. I think that it's healthy that everybody likes different people, and I have no problem, and I will never fight you on that. If everyone in my church likes other people more than me, praise God, okay? Because I'm not the best at anything, and I have mistakes too, and I think it's healthy if we all have a diversity of opinion, because I think it will produce in us an attitude and spirit of saying, we're gathered here together because of Christ. I want to go to another place, go to Galatians chapter number 5, go to Galatians chapter number 5. Every church should ultimately be focused on the Lord Jesus Christ. And I think that this is what makes me sad, and I feel like I'm probably been guilty of this too, is making church members or making the flock feel like they have to decide between personality conflicts and their church decisions. Feeling like they can't go to a church because of pastoral personality conflicts or issues. And that makes me sad. It makes me sad that someone would not go to the best church for them because of how they feel about a particular personality or person, or there's a conflict, or people are making people choose a side. And here's the thing. I am not going to make anyone choose any side. I'm not going to make anyone choose any opinion here. I'm not going to make anyone do anything. And I think we should give grace to everyone who has varying opinions on this. And we should be loving towards one another in this. Right. And what the devil would love is for us to attack each other. The Bible says in Galatians chapter 5, verse 14, For all the laws fulfilled in one word, even in this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. But if you bite and devour one another, take heed that ye be not consumed one of another. This I say then, walk in the Spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. We need to make sure that we're not biting and devouring one another. Period.
Right.
Period. And here's the thing, we should not be hating and attacking Christians, period.
Right.
Now, sometimes, obviously, we have to correct our brethren. Sometimes we have to tell them that they're doing something wrong in a loving manner and spirit. But at the same time, there is millions of Christians in this world. And there are millions of people online. You cannot go online and correct every single brother and sister in Christ. And honestly, we should probably try our best to limit the corrections that we offer to those who are closest to us, to the people that we have a real relationship and that we know. Because otherwise, it's like the idea of, if you really want to help the poor, good luck giving money to every poor person. You should think about it like, I want to help the poor people that are in my life, in my area, in my situation. That makes sense. And I think the same comes to our friendships, that we should be careful and not think I have to personally correct every Christian out there. I deem myself the correction police, and I want to make sure and right every single wrong, because many times it devolves into fighting and hatred and all kinds of attack that's unnecessary. And we can all disagree on certain issues and still be friends. Some issues we can't disagree on and still be friends. If you disagree with me on the gospel, we're not friends. If you disagree with me on which Bible, then go to a different church. I can still be friendly towards you, and I can still try to help you understand why you're wrong. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to be mad at people for having a different opinion on this situation. And I think what some people don't understand is, some people in our church have known who Pastor Anderson is, our friend, for years. He's helped them personally. They maybe even got saved as a result of his ministry. Maybe they've grown a lot spiritually. And for them to think negative things about him or to want to go against him feels so wrong. And there's other people that are maybe newer to our church or don't even have much of they don't really even know who he is that much. And for them, things just seem so clear and so obvious. And they feel like they are confused why people would have a different opinion. You have to understand, we're all coming at this from different perspectives, different personal experiences, different ideas, and just because someone has a different opinion does not mean that they're being insincere or a bad person. We want to make sure that we're careful to give grace unto everyone and not attack and bite and devour each other, because we have an opportunity as Steadfast Baptist Church to set a very powerful example of saying, we will love each other, period. We will be gracious to one another, period. And even other Christians outside of our sphere, we're going to give grace to them, period. And whether you like this or not, many churches, pastors, and people all around the world are looking even how we will respond to this situation. And whether you like that fact or not, it's a reality. And when you are biting and devouring other people, you are green-lighting many other people to do so. And you're not representing your church or Christ very well. We should not allow other people's drama to cause us to sin against our fellow Christians. Okay? And I am not mad at anybody in this room for having different opinions right now. I'm not. I'm sincerely not. And I'm wanting to extend as much grace as I can to everyone. I want to also go to another Bible verse. Go to 2 Samuel chapter 12. I am going to give you just my personal opinion as to what's happened in this situation. This is complete speculation. This is completely just my personal opinion. But I want people to be able to have some idea of what may be going on, because I think most of us are just confused. Most of us are just genuinely confused, and we don't see how all the facts could even make sense. Myself included, but I have thought about this a lot, and I have a lot of information, so I just want to give you some kind of opinion. I believe that, based on the facts that I know, obviously at some point during the young teenage years of the Anderson children's lives, the punishment became very strict. depending on, you can label this however you want, it became very strict. That did not cause the children to change their behavior and cause them to start acting more appropriately. As a result of the strict punishment, it created a bitterness and a hatred in the heart of these children towards their father and towards their mother. After it was obvious that the punishments were not working, Pastor Anderson completely backed off and just allowed them to have complete freedom, including making a lot of decisions that are kind of questionable as far as just the contrast of strict upbringing, allowing them to just go out and be a part of the world and hang out with all kinds of different people. And I think based on the combination of the fact that they had a little bit of bitterness in their hearts, and then they were allowed to just have a lot of worldly influences and make a lot of very sinful decisions, that is why we're in the situation that we're in. I believe all 4 of his children are saved. I believe Pastor Anderson is saved. I believe his wife is saved. That's never going to change, okay? I believe that also Pastor Anderson and his wife are very sincere that they believe they have not done anything wrong from a big picture, based on the conversations that I've had. I believe that he has a blind spot in this issue, in this area of his family, and that has caused him to not understand why there's a problem. From his perspective, he disciplined them, and he was giving them clothes and food, and from his perspective, on that checklist, he believes he hasn't done anything wrong from the big picture. But I believe there's a blind spot here, and he's not fully understanding what's happening in that situation. His kids are simply lashing out as a result. Now, many people have said, well, I think that his son John is Absalom. And okay, if you want to give us that analogy, then we have to be honest about that situation. And I want to read a little bit of Bible about that situation. The Bible says in 2 Samuel chapter 12, look at verse 9. Wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of the Lord, to do evil in his sight? Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and hast slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from thine house, because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house, and I will take thy wives before thine eyes, and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of the sun. For thou didst it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun. And David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said unto David, The Lord also hath put away thy sin, thou shalt not die. Howbeit, because by this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child also that is born unto thee shall surely die. I could see some parallels to the story of David and Absalom. I do not think it's a perfect explanation of what's going on. But I want to be fair. If you believe this is an analogy, then you have to understand, even if Absalom, which, of course, all the actions of Absalom were 100% wrong, it was still a punishment for David doing something wrong. And even if you want to say, I think the kids are lying, slandering, making up false accusations against their parents, which I think some of that's for sure true, it does not change the fact that all 4 of them are against their father. And to me, that seems like there's an issue then, and there's a blind spot. Okay? Not accusing Pastor Anderson of anything, because I have no idea. My personal opinion, my personal speculation as to understand these events. Because I think a lot of people are discouraged right now, and they think, I don't want this to happen to my kids. And first of all, he's never preached anything like this. I have never preached anything like this. And I think all of us need to take heed unto how we raise our kids, and making sure that we're constantly affirming our love toward them and applying proper punishment, but also making sure that we're winning the hearts of our children, okay? Regardless of what you think about this situation. But I want to put forth a narrative. Now, here's the thing. I can corroborate the narrative that I just gave you by a lot of different things. Number one, John started dressing different and acting different years ago, okay? John started having long hair and dressing in like short shorts and being very worldly years ago. There was a texting scandal that happened at Faithful Word in 2020, which I think was probably blown out of proportion, but it was still an issue that had came out, and some fallout over that issue. Additionally, John has been in a physical altercation at Verity Baptist Church with another church member at a prior conference. Additionally, his daughter Miriam has dressed very strange to say the least, for the last several years. So to say that there was this is just completely out of the blue, or that these kids' behavior is completely erratic and out of nowhere is not completely fair. And to say that there has been some concern or some issues that were noticeable. And I think that it's very likely that that's the scenario. Now, because my friend, Pastor Anderson, is very sincere and very genuine, and I don't believe he's lied to me about anything, but he's been very careful in how he's worded stuff to me, I'm not going to abandon him as a friend. I'm not going to stop being his friend. I'm not going to stop supporting him and his church. Pastor Anderson came here when Steadfast Baptist Church pastor was not maybe unqualified, 100% unqualified, and helped them and loved this church and preached for this church and did good in this church. So no matter what my opinion is of Pastor Anderson, no matter how he interprets how I feel, I am willing to help them do something for that church. You know, anything I could do to help the situation. I don't want to abandon my friend even if he's done something wrong. Okay? And I don't think that we should. I don't think that we should just because someone did something wrong, just like hate on them, attack them, believe the worst, not support the person. You know, just because someone makes a decision that we disagree with doesn't mean we can't support them in a lot of ways. Yeah. And even if Pastor Anderson decides to just keep pastoring and just keep going to this church, I am not going to be preaching against him, attacking him, trying to do anything to subvert him. I'm going to support him where I can. I am planning on making a one-time public, probably post, not a video or anything like that, because I've already made the situation more dramatic in my opinion. I'm sorry if I made a mistake there. But I want to clarify my position one time, but I didn't feel like it was fair to you and other people to do that before I had a chance to talk to you guys. Okay? And because of the fact that we have, you know, a lot of people that follow us online and things like that, some of my friends were concerned that if I said anything, that it could cause problems for their church. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to cause problems for some of our friends' churches. I've had conversations with Pastor Mejia, Pastor Thompson, Pastor Jimenez, other pastors, and the last thing I want to do is hurt or harm their church. Last thing I want to do is hurt and harm the UIP. Last thing I want to do is hurt and harm y'all. But at the end of the day, my ultimate loyalty in this matter is y'all. And I want to make whatever decision is best for us, period. And I will continue to do that. Good. I also want to say, you know, unfortunately, even Isaac, going back to something I said earlier, Isaac has also made a lot of really bad, sinful decisions in the last several years of his life. And I'm not going to disclose those because, frankly speaking, I don't disclose people's sins, okay? People have told me stuff, and I know stuff about other people, and I'm not going to disclose that either. But there's been a pattern of issue. And I was willing to believe and just continue to give the benefit of the doubt that if there's one bad kid or maybe two bad kids or something like that, maybe this is an anomaly, and I'm not going to hold that against a pastor. But at this point, you know, my position has changed. It's not a smoking gun to me because it's not like something like adultery or something like that I can just immediately point to. I think that there's a little bit of room for having different opinion. And I'm not going to fight any pastor for having a different opinion on this thing. And I'm not going to even say dogmatically that I'm right because I think there's gray. I'm just letting you know where I stand. As far as a few other people that I want to address, and then I'll let you ask some questions if you want. I've also communicated with Pastor Matthew Stuckey because he's directly related and linked to our evangelist Duncan right now. And he does not have a different opinion than me on this issue. He's not going to do anything publicly that I am aware of. But he is telling his church, I don't know, they're like 12 hours different than us, but he was telling them in their Sunday morning service that he would leave Faith Ward Baptist Church if he was attending there. But that he's not going to attack Pastor Anderson, and that he's not going to go against him. He's had conversations with a lot of people. I communicated that with Brother Duncan, and nothing's changing between me and him, or that situation, or how we're supporting him, that's all going. I'm committed to him, period. So we're supporting him. He's doing great work in the Philippines. And we're still taking it one day at a time. We don't know what his future is going to be. We don't know if he's going to just keep doing evangelism over there, maybe start a church someday, maybe take over a church, maybe come back to the States and do a church plant here. All of those are on the table, and they've always been on the table for him. Okay? But we're going to continue to support him here. Is regarding Tanner Fur. He is moving here Monday, and nothing's changing about that. And he's going to be coming on staff as a part-time employee to help us with administrative work, evangelism work, and events. And I'm very excited for him coming down. I was supposed to go up to Oklahoma to celebrate with them moving and to check on things, and I did not want to cancel at all. But because our conference is coming up this week, and because I wasn't going to be here, and I want things to I want us to just be on the same page so that we can just start moving forward. And that we don't punish any children with drama, and they don't get to have the best time they can have at this conference, okay? So that's why I decided to stay today. I am going to go there October 13th. So I just changed my plans. I'm going to go up there and check on things October 13th. As far as Brother Dylan, nothing has changed about him being the leader up there. He's still going strong, and God willing, if everything is going well and he's running that church smoothly up there, then we'll make plans to have him ordained at some point, and that'll become its own independent Baptist church. So there's nothing really changed in that situation. He is reading a public statement that I wrote and fielding some questions this morning to that church. Their statement is much briefer than what I just told you this morning, but it covers basically the same facts. I would ask, please, please, please do not say something publicly about my position right now, because at the end of the day, I'm trying my best to give our friends, like Pastor Roger Minnis, Pastor Bruce Mejia, Pastor Thompson, all them, plenty of time to just talk with their churches today and do what they're going to do. And the last thing I want to do is just cause more strife, more problems for other people. I will at some point, probably next week, or probably this week, I guess, probably like Monday or Tuesday, make a one-time public statement just to clarify so that people can know what's going on. But I would just please ask you, please don't say anything before then. And it's not just for me, it's for our friends, for the cause of Christ, it's for the situation. After I make my one-time statement, though, I'm going to make it clear, I'm not going to attack Pastor Anderson, go against him, fight him, and I will help him in any way that he will allow me to. I don't know that he will want to be my friend still necessarily, but I will be his friend, period. Okay? If you disagree with me on that, you can disagree with me 100%. But I feel like abandoning him, even if he's made mistakes, is the wrong move, period. Yeah. And even if he continues to pastor, I will still be his friend and support him where I can. So, if you disagree with me, you can do that, and I have no problem with people disagreeing with me. I would ask, though, if you disagree with me, talk to me about it, and tell me, and try not to just tell everybody else and tell the world or something like that. Now, obviously, if you don't want to be part of our church, you can do whatever you want. But at the end of the day, I don't want people slandering each other in this church or slandering other pastors. Good. Pastor Salvador Alvarez called me before he made a public statement and told me his position. And I did not fight him on that. I tried to be respectful. He is a pastor, albeit a very young and new pastor. While I can totally respect his position, he said a lot of things about the situation that I don't personally agree with. But again, I'm not going to fight him on that, and I'm still going to be his friend, and he's still going to be our friend, and he's still planning on coming to our conference. And I'm still going to treat him with respect, even if I think that he's made mistakes. I think that all of us, especially if you have young children, you should not be harsh to judge right now. And I think that we should all be careful to not just judge other people when we have not had success in an area where we're criticizing other people. And I'm not saying that because you can't find fault. I'm not saying that you can't believe the Bible. I'm saying we should be very careful, myself included. And I've preached multiple times where I said, raising teenagers and raising this stuff, Some of this is my opinion. You take it for that, because I haven't successfully raised teenagers. Don't take everything that I say as gospel truth. Obviously, we should all believe the Bible, and I think it's a responsibility for me to preach the whole Bible, period. And I try to give my opinion where I feel like it's necessary. But sometimes it is my opinion. Everyone needs to always make whatever is the best decision for their family and serving Christ. My job as a pastor is to help all of you in this room to serve Christ better, no matter what that means. Even if it means not coming to my church. Because it's not about me, it's not about my church, it's about you and your family serving Christ the best that I can help you. And I am for you, and I am on your team in that regard. Okay? That does not mean I don't want people to come to my church. I love people coming to my church. I love seeing all of you. It makes me happy. I get really excited. I love your families. Y'all are very special to me and my family. And I think that we have a special church. Obviously, I'm biased, but at the same time, even amongst all of our friends, I think that we have one of the healthiest and most gracious churches of our movement, and I don't want to see that change. If you weren't that way, I would tell you. And frankly, the people that were in Jacksonville, they can tell you that when I went to that church, I made it abundantly clear to them they were a carnal church. Because they were at the time that I visited them. Yeah. So I'm not just saying this to say this. I'm saying we do have currently a very healthy church that's been growing, thriving. We've been breaking our church attendance records. We've been doing great soul winning. Why would we allow drama like that to stop us? Yeah. Why would we allow personal opinions and personal grievances and different ideas right now to stop that? That is allowing the devil to win. Yeah. Having an opinion on Pastor Anderson is not letting the devil win. Okay? Attacking each other is letting the devil win. Yeah. Not being charitable is letting the devil win. Amen. Stop going to church is letting the devil win. Stop reading the Bible is letting the devil win. Stop loving your children is letting the devil win. Stop disciplining your children is letting the devil win. We need to make sure that we don't faint and we stay steadfast to our convictions, to the Bible, to what we know to be true. And no matter what happens, this church needs to serve Christ. If I do something bad, if I screwed up, whatever, I hope that this church continues to serve Christ with or without me. Because it's not about me. And never will be about me. And it's not about you, it's about us serving Christ. And we need to all make sure that we're making the best decisions for other people too. For our wives, for our children, for our brethren, and for the lost. And so we need to make sure that in this situation, we're not so concerned with our personal opinions getting out there, but rather having empathy and grace towards other people. Now, I've said a lot. I have an abbreviated sermon. I don't even have to preach this morning. I'm willing to take the time to address concerns and issues because I think it's beneficial. If you disagree with me, I will not fight you, get mad at you, or treat you badly. But I would think it's healthier if you genuinely are upset and mad or really concerned about something I said, to address it now, as opposed to allowing that to create some bitterness or be unresolved. That doesn't mean we're going to agree necessarily, but I would rather at least have a chance to address something if you're genuinely concerned. So if any of the men have any questions, I am willing to address whatever question you have. Brother Marcel.
The reason why you're making the public statement is it to retract your previous video you made, or?
It's a lot of reasons. Number one, it's to clarify my position because I've made a public statement already. Secondly, it's for you guys because I think it's unfair for you to have to represent my view to the world. And whether I like it or not, everyone's going to ask. You have friends outside of this room. We have relationships outside of this room. People are going to ask what you think, what's going on. And then it's going to be you trying to just explain what I just said in your own words, and it won't come out the same. It'll be interpreted completely differently. People are going to say wildly crazy things. And if I don't say anything, people are going to be like, what's going on? What does Pastor Shelley really think? What's really going on? To me, it makes more sense to one time verify my position so that you don't have to tell anybody what I believe, and then we can move forward. And then I can support Pastor Anderson where I feel like is right, and where and again, against what I believe are some very false accusations and some unfair judgments and criticisms and everything like that. But if I only just support him on these unfair criticisms or whatever, people can get the wrong idea or come to bad conclusions. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I want people to stop fighting other Christians. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, does that answer your question as far as why?
Yeah, so regardless if you made a previous video, you're going to make a public statement to kind of give what you believe.
Yeah, but if I make a public statement, here's the thing. I almost emailed the church about my decision a couple days ago, but what would probably have happened is someone would have shared or leaked that. Someone would have said something online about it, and it would have caused more controversy and issue in some of our friends' churches and online, and it would just cause more arguing and more bitterness and more grievance. So that's why I wanted to address you guys first, in person, without, dropping some bomb on someone else potentially, and then having an opportunity to say one thing one more time. I don't want to make a video because I think it would make things worse, and I probably already made things worse. And I'm not trying to make things worse. I'm just trying to do whatever's best. I'm sorry if I've upset people about this because I don't know what's right. I'm just trying to navigate it the best that I can. Brother Nick?
Just for more clarification, you said you did want him to take a leave of absence or step down from being a pastor, but yet still did want to be his friend and support him. What does that look like? Are you breaking fellowship? Still be a friend?
Okay, so his question, just for people to understand, he asked me if, since I do personally believe he should either step down or take a leave of absence, but I want to support him, what does that mean? I would say it this way. I'm going to make a public statement of how I feel about the situation. But that being said, just because someone is pastoring and I don't think that they should continue pastoring, doesn't mean I can't be friendly towards them. Doesn't mean I couldn't like their sermon or something. Doesn't mean that I couldn't even potentially preach for them or help them. Okay. I don't know the answer to every single scenario, if that makes sense. I'm not going to be officially breaking fellowship with them or anything like that. But at the same time, I don't have them scheduled to preach at our church or have any events at our church, and I don't know what my decision would be on that. I think that I still want to give some time to even see where I stand on that issue. But there's times when, here's the thing that people don't always know, is there's plenty of pastors out there that I don't really agree with their ordination status, and I haven't preached against them, attacked them, and I've been friendly to them and supported them in various ways. So it wouldn't be the first time that I've technically disagreed with someone's decision making in this situation. Now, obviously, if someone just ran off with the secretary and committed adultery and starts a non-denominational church, I'm breaking fellowship with that person, period, right? But if a Baptist pastor in an area where it's a little bit gray makes decisions that I personally disagree with, I'm not going to attack them and necessarily stop being friendly towards them. Because here's the thing. If someone called me tomorrow and said, hey, we preached at the Southern Baptist Church, we got 1,000 people here, they want to hear what you have to say, I'd probably do it. And that's more extreme than, they probably have more issues than whatever faith we're dealing with right now. Okay, so, and if Pastor Anderson can come here and preach for us when Pastor Romero's it's not even a question he's unqualified, then why can't I help them if they wanted me to? I think after I make my public stance, if he wants me to come preach for him, why wouldn't I? I'm not going to change my position or something, but at the same time, I think there's a difference between preaching for someone and being friends with someone, and supporting their decisions. To me, fellowship is based on if you're saved and you're using the King James Bible, and then I take consideration, if you're pro soul winning at least, or you're attacking me and my friends, that's kind of an issue sometimes. But that's discretion. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know I don't know if I can give you a more clear answer because I don't know everything. But does that kind of satisfy? Okay.
I think he's going to stop being your friend if you come out with a statement that says, in your opinion, he should take a leave of absence or step down. I'm curious your reaction to that.
Yes, he says that if I make this statement, he thinks Pastor will stop being my friend. It's probably true. I don't know for sure. I have expressed to him how I feel generally. Obviously, I haven't made that statement to him exactly, but even if someone's not my friend, that doesn't mean I can't be their friend. So, doesn't mean I can't be friendly towards them and support them and want good for them. And, friendship sometimes is one way. So, I can't stop being his friend because he's only done good to me. And I look up to him. And just because I'm his friend, though, doesn't mean I'm going to support his decisions, right? So, just like I'm y'all's friends, and let's just be honest, I don't support all y'all's decisions either, okay? So, you know, let's just be honest. Some people in our church go out and get divorced and remarried. Some people commit grievous sin. Some people just say the dumbest things I've ever seen online. Some people, you know, deny that we landed on the moon. And I'm not going to attack them and not stop being their friend, okay? So I just want to be clear, like, I can have a diversity of opinions and still be friendly towards someone. Even some of our frenemies, I can still be friendly toward them, you know? And I'm not going to hate on them just because of their difference of opinion on this. That doesn't mean I wouldn't hold them accountable for slander and railing and some of the false accusations they make, but I think we should try our best to be more friendly, not less.
Let's just say, for instance, that you had a church member that was going through the same exact thing you had the same exact thing, and wanted to be ordained as a pastor. Would you ordain that person? Would you qualify or qualify?
So, Brother Milstead asked if I had a church member that was going through this issue, would I ordain them? I think based on my previous statement that I think he should step down would clarify that the answer is no. I think that if someone was going through this, I would be counseling them, hey, you need to focus on your family right now and probably step out of leadership even, not even just whether it's a question of being a pastor. But here's the thing, if that person could reconcile with their family and they had time to repair, and it appeared that maybe they had corrected their family issues, I can't say for sure I would permanently disqualify them. So I don't know if that answers your question. Do you have a follow-up on that? Sure, but let me answer this a little bit differently too. There are people that I will not ordain that I would consider a pastor. So, for example, I won't ordain my children. But at the same time, if someone is ordained by their father, I will fight them. There are people that don't have children that have been ordained, and I disagree with that, and I don't think that that's the right move. But I will not fight them on that particular point and like call for their resignation. So there's going to be situations where people can technically disagree with their own personal standards. In this situation, I am still suggesting that this is my personal opinion on this issue. I don't know for sure if it's crossed this is the clear line. In some people's mind, it's for sure a clear line, and I respect your opinion on that. I'm simply saying, like, adultery is a clear line for me. How many kids are upset with their parents and having issues in their family, and how that qualifies or disqualifies a person, I don't have a clear line on that. So, you know, again, if this is the same situation, of course, I would say no. And I would want them to address that in the same way. And I have thought about that. But I'll also say this. Let's say there's another pastor out there, whoever it is, that we don't even know, and he's a King James fundamental soul-winning Baptist, and he's having the exact same issue. If someone asked my opinion, I would say, yeah, he probably needs to step down and focus on his family. But I'm not going to fight him, I'm not going to attack him, and I'm not going to go on a campaign to call for his resignation. So it really doesn't, I'm trying to be honest with myself and say, no matter who we look at and apply this to, I'm trying to make the same judgment. Does that kind of satisfy your questions?
What would have to change that you for sure?
The question is, what would have to change for him to be for sure disqualified? I think that when it comes to qualifications, there's a lot of gray. There's things that are clear. The husband of one wife, that's a clear line. Okay. I think when it says blameless, gentle, apt to teach, a lot of this is a judgment call that a pastor has to make. So, to me, for it to be clear, I have to have clear verses that just you can't really even argue or have different interpretations or opinions on. So, you know, again, if he told me, hey, I'm punching my wife repeatedly in the face, or something like that, or he's saying, like, I don't love my kids or something, I don't know. I mean, if there was something clear that I could base it on, or if he said, hey, I feel like I've sinned and screwed up and I've done all these horrible things and blah, 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 then you'd be like, okay, let's cross the line, it's clear, it's over, right? But if he's going to say that he's done nothing wrong, and I'm just looking at the facts that I have, of course I can form a personal opinion, but here's the thing. Obviously, I believe that that's the case, but I don't know that I need to be dogmatic about it. In your opinion, do I need to be dogmatic about it?
No, but I mean, you're going to make statements like, well, when the
So again, from my conversations that I've had recently, and based on the conversations I've had, the parenting became very lax. That's what all the kids said. That's what he said. That's not something I've known for sure. I've just seen some things that I was kind of concerned about, but I'm not going to pry into people's personal life. Having learned that now, I'm trying to give you my interpretation of the facts and how I believe that this is going. Because I think a lot of people are genuinely concerned for their family and their kids, and they want to know, how can somebody that got me saved, preach the Bible, is completely faithful, is filled with the Spirit of God, how can that person have these kids? That doesn't make sense. And I'm trying to help people maybe have a reasonable explanation for those facts. Okay? That is new information to me. So, I can't necessarily I'm not going to pry into everybody's personal life to always see if they're qualified or not. I want to make sure you're satisfied. So if you have something, I agree some things are not clear. But here's the thing, the decisions I'm making are based on things that won't change. Number one, he doxed his brother Clint at a time that did not seem appropriate. Number two, his 4 children are against him currently. Number three, him and his wife and his children are publicly attacking each other, which is causing a lot of envy and strife amongst all Christians. No matter what you think, those are just facts. So based on those facts, I've come to the conclusion that I've come to. And it's not going to really change. Obviously, if Pastor Anderson took an immediate leave of absence, I think there might be a blind spot, and he could reconcile with all of his kids, and then he continued pastoring, maybe I would say, I don't know, maybe he fixed it and we'll just move on. But obviously, then the trajectory that it's headed, and the decisions that he's making, and his behavior, I think that it makes sense for him to either just step down or take a leave of absence. That's my position. Sure. But why does that matter? Why does it matter when this may or may not have happened? Because we don't know. We're all speculating. Okay. But I'm agreeing that there was a problem and there's a blind spot. I don't think it matters when or what the details of that are. Well, I said that I believe you should step down. What else should I say? I mean, again, it's my personal opinion that the issue has crossed a threshold where he should step down. Does that mean he's permanently disqualified and that's an objective fact? I don't have a full answer for that. But obviously, again, if he could step down and reconcile with his kids and move on, that's why I'm saying maybe there's a grace option. So if I just thought it was a clear cut, then I would just say that. And I'm not against anybody that believes that, because I think that is a valid viewpoint and it is a valid question. I'm just simply saying where I'm at right now. Is that fair? Okay.
Clarify, it sounded like you were perhaps making a distinction between currently unqualified versus currently disqualified.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, let's. Yeah, I'll repeat. He asked, so you're making a distinction between permanently disqualified and just currently unqualified. Let's say a pastor, and there is a pastor in our area whose wife died. Is he meeting the current qualifications of having one wife? No. But would I potentially give that person grace to decide to either find another wife or get married again or repair that situation? I would. Additionally, if he decides to continue staying pastor without a wife, my personal opinion is that he should eventually step down, because he's probably going to be imbalanced in his preaching, because he's not going on a daily basis having a wife and thinking about all those things, so he could have a blind spot there. But if he does, I won't fight him. And here's the thing, I've recommended Pastor R.A. Smith's church to people even recently, even 2 days ago, okay? And he is, in my opinion, I don't know of the facts, but I think that he's still unmarried. I think that he lost his wife several years ago, and he hasn't gotten remarried. I could be wrong on those facts, but, and again, my personal opinion is that he probably should have stepped down then or find a replacement. But I will never fight him on that issue, because that's just kind of to me, there's discretion there. What does that mean? Okay? But some people say, well, that's a clear thing. He doesn't have a wife. I can see that, people. I'm just trying to be honest with the situation that if someone commits adultery, I will say they're permanently disbanded from being a pastor. They should never be a pastor, and they should step down immediately. That's what happened with Romero. If we look at this situation, when it comes to faithful children, I'm not going to create a standard out there and say, if you have this number of kids and they're saying these type of things, then you're permanently disqualified and I'm never going to change my position. I think there's discretion here. And I think that we should all be willing to say that our personal opinions are our opinions. Okay? So, and again, it's a judgment factor here. What did I preach on Sunday night? God blesses with biblical best. If a pastor is continuing to pastor when he's been disqualified or in questionable circumstances, well, God's going to bless with biblical best. But there's been plenty of pastors, even frenemies of ours, that have slandered and railed. And if I was their pastor, they would have to take serious accountability for that, or I'd kick them out of church. But they're still pastoring. And here's the thing. They're still getting people saved. They're still preaching sermons that are helping people. And I'm not going to go on a campaign to constantly attack them, because at the end of the day, if they're for Christ, I'm just trying to leave them alone. I've demonstrated that with Pastor McMurtry a couple of years ago. I said, look, I said to stay away from Saul, preached a sermon about it, I explained a lot of grievance I had with him, he took no accountability for it, but instead of just having a permanent record out there to constantly warn people about him, I decided I was going to take it down, give him grace, because I'm not going to Illinois anytime soon to get anybody saved, and he's going out and getting people saved, and whether I agree with it or not, God can deal with that situation, and God's going to always bless with biblical best. And the reality is, none of us are probably going to go to Phoenix anytime soon, maybe a few people, and get a lot of people saved. And if Pastor Anderson and his church keep getting people saved, even though they're doing something wrong, I'm going to just, do my best to support them where I can. And I could be wrong. Here's the thing. My personal opinion is not the Bible. I'm having a personal opinion. But I think it's important for our church to have some idea of where we're at and just move forward. And give grace to people that have differing opinions. This is a very emotional situation. People are very opinionated. People have strong convictions. This is important to people. And I do not want to discount that for anyone. And if you disagree with me 100%, I am for you. And I totally get where you're coming from. I'm trying to be reasonable, though, in my approach so that our church can move forward and what's best for our church. And what's best for our church is to focus on us. But at the same time, I want to deal with these now because here's the thing, if I don't talk to you about this and I don't bring this up, all of y'all are going to keep fighting about this. All of you are going to keep saying, well, I think that it's clear. Well, I don't think it's clear. Well, I like him. Well, I believe the accusations. Well, I don't believe the accusations. And there's just going to be this constant just fighting and biting and devouring and getting mad at each other. And I think that's garbage. And I think that distracts from the cause of Christ and is going to ruin our church for no reason. If people disagree with me, please do. I am not telling you to change your mind or your opinions on this. I'm just trying to make it clear where I stand, how to try to parse these things biblically. And I think we should always give pastors the benefit of the doubt when we don't know things that are true for sure. His children have, for sure, contradicted themselves in some areas, said things that are not true when I fact check them. So I'm not going to just believe all the accusations against him, period. But at the same time, I'm not basing my decision on accusations. I'm not basing my decisions on a tranny being in, a vehicle by which these children are rebelling against their father. Because that's wrong. I think the children are wrong to do this. I think the children are wrong to attack the parents. I think the children are wrong to lie and exaggerate. I think that it's wrong for his brother to kidnap his daughter, regardless of what you think about the situation. But even if I say all of the events of their children and these things are bad, it doesn't change the fact that there's animosity between these two people and they're attacking each other online and it's causing division and strife that doesn't need to be there. And as a result of that, I think that we should try to reduce the drama, stress, woe. I mean, my heart has been broken for the last week. This hurts. For real. And I think everybody's heartbroken, period. No matter what you think. And it sucks because it's somebody that we all love and we care about. And it sucks. But that doesn't mean just because I hate what I'm saying and the facts that I'm saying, they're still facts. And I'm gonna deal with ugly situations. I always have and I always will. And my commitment is to y'all to do what I think is best for the church and for the cause of Christ. Does that at least satisfy? Okay. If someone has another question, Brother Isaiah.
Whether people believe Pastor Anderson and his wife or the children, for you as our pastor and for the church, what you think is right or wrong, if a husband can hit his wife with or without an object for any reason?
Are you asking me what I believe about that?
Yeah.
So the question was, what do I think about a husband hitting his wife
Right.
with an object or just in general?
Well, the punch the wife, smack the wife, elbow,
Okay.
hit with the cord.
Well, again, I felt like I didn't want to address this publicly because I felt like it wasn't edifying. But again, here's my opinion, just because you asked and I want to clarify. I personally do not believe in spousal corporal punishment. I also would say that there is a clear historical distinction between spousal discipline and spousal abuse. Whether you ask the world, AI, the dictionary, whether you look at historical facts, there's always been a clear distinction between these. I'm against both, okay? Obviously, if a husband is punching his wife, that is wicked as hell, okay? And I've said that, I preached that, okay? I'm not gonna change my opinion on that. I've never smacked my wife or slapped her or punched her or kicked her or hurt, and I'm not using anything. The worst thing I've done is tickle her, okay? So if you want to get mad at me for that, then you can. But I'll say this, even just tickling my wife, sometimes the kids got scared because they were just nervous that their mother was being hurt. And I'll just be honest with you, my kids love my wife more than me. They like her more. And if they perceive that I'm hurting their mom in any way, it can cause them to have bitterness and hatred towards me as their father, okay? And I think it's extremely unwise for men to hurt their wives, okay, period. Is there a context historically, and is there even today in 2024, people who practice a form of spousal discipline that they think is appropriate? Yes, that's just a fact. It's just a fact that in America, literally, if you just look at historical movies from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even in 2000, husbands spanking their wives. Whether you agree with that or not, it's just a fact. Slavery's a fact. I don't agree with slavery, okay? And just because that's a fact doesn't mean I even agree with it. But many people have believed this, and it did not destroy their marriage or cause problems when they did it however they saw fit, okay? So I will not condemn somebody for their beliefs on this. I would not condemn somebody if they were doing what appears to be some kind of a loving, behind-the-scenes, slight corporal punishment. But at the same time, I would never recommend that. I would tell them to stop. I completely disagree with it. Some people have said, well, you're enabling abuse because if a woman ever said that their husbands ever either hit them or slapped them or something, you wouldn't do anything about it. Well, number one, if I had the opportunity, I would tell their husband that's wrong and stop it, whatever. But additionally, here's the thing. If a husband came to me and said, my wife has committed adultery against me, what should I do? I would say, well, you should still love her and stay committed to that relationship. Is that fair to then say I'm enabling adultery? That's an unfair criticism. Just like if I can encourage a wife who maybe their husband's made a mistake in this area, say, I think you should still love him and treat him with respect and try to work on your marriage. That is not me greenlighting, endorsing, suggesting, or approving of any abuse. I think that it's wrong. If someone in an extreme situation, and I'm saying extreme, felt danger for their life or their children and they physically separated from their spouse, I will not fight them or judge them in that situation, because we all need to make sure we're preserving ourselves from extreme situations. I think that most situations are not that. Okay. I don't know, but here's the thing. It's really easy for some pastors who let their wives tell them what to do to pretend like, well, I've never even called my wife a name. Oh, wow, you're so amazing. But here's the thing. 99.9999% of people are not that person. Probably in almost every marriage, people have had really nasty fights. I would even venture that a large percentage of men have maybe one time slapped their wife or did something inappropriate. And so I have to unfortunately deal with reality too. And it wouldn't be fair for me to be pious and be like, well, I've never done anything wrong and no one should ever do anything wrong and you should divorce your husband or attack him or something. Like, if a man's made a mistake in this area, I think if he should have corrected immediately, but that wives should try to be gracious unto their husband and try to work on their marriage. Just like if a wife did something horrible to her husband, I think that the husband should try to forgive her and they should work on their marriage. I will never agree with divorce. I preached that a million times. I'll continue to preach that. If someone wanted to physically separate because they felt they were in physical danger, like Leslie Romero said with Donnie, I'm not going to fight her on that. Even Pastor Anderson paid for it. Pastor Anderson literally paid for Leslie Romero to not be near Donnie Romero because she feared for her physical safety. So it's not like Pastor Anderson wants to enable abusers or something. That's ridiculous. Okay, I would never enable somebody. But, you know, that's like, this is the argument when people say, well, if you think people can do whatever they want and go to heaven, then you're giving them a license to sin. Well, that's just a false accusation. And to say that I'm giving anybody a green light to hurt their wives is false and will never be true. Does that satisfy my position?
And the second part, like, so if him or in general, pastor was, let's say, hitting their wife, not spanking her, I didn't even know you could do
Well,
that.
he's not punching his wife for sure, because no one said that that's true.
I'm not talking about punching. That
Okay.
was my original question. Hitting, whatever that looks like. Are they disqualified as a pastor? Or is that okay as a pastor can hit his wife? I mean, that's what I'm.
Okay, so the second question is, if a husband is hitting his wife, does that disqualify him?
Is that okay?
Obviously, it's not okay. I just said that it's not okay.
Right.
So it's not a question of if it's right or wrong. I think that,
Do you believe that he did that?
here's the thing. No matter what goes on in the marriage, as long as the husband and wife are okay with each other, it's not my business, is how I personally perceive it. Okay? If I discovered, or it somehow came to my attention, that a spouse was hurting their wife in some way, and I don't know what that looks like, it would probably be dependent on the circumstances. If it was like, hey, we were in a physical altercation one time and I kind of lost control, or I hit her as accident or something, like, I don't know that I would just say, like, well, you're doomed. Okay? But obviously if someone's like, I slapped and smacked my wife and hit her and all this, like, every day, then it's just like, yeah, I mean, what are you doing? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, you've lost control. So I'm just going to be honest that I can't just say hard and fast that if someone made a mistake there one time, or it was an exception, that I would just hold that person's feet to the fire. But, you know, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I would just say I don't have a clear answer. Is at least satisfactory? Okay. Good job.
Have you spoken to Pastor Jimenez? And if you have, do you know what his opinion is?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I talked to him about not coming to the conference and everything like that. He doesn't agree with me that Pastor Anderson should step down at this time, according to unless he's changed his opinion. I don't know that he is going to change his opinion. He loves Pastor Anderson. He's going to support him, and I'm his friend, and we're friends regardless of how we fall on this issue. So, and I've spoken with a lot of pastors, and that's been the consensus. I think there's some pastors that didn't really like me, that I don't know where our friendship is, but I'll still try to be friends with them anyway. I'm still friends with Pastor Salvador. As far as I know, I'm friends with Pastor Thompson, Pastor Jimenez, Pastor Mejia, Pastor Alvarez. I'm still friends with Pastor Anderson in my mind, at least, you know, both sides. And of course, I will never change on that particular issue. If he doesn't want to be my friend right now, if I disagree with him, I support that, and I can understand it, respect it, but that doesn't change how I'm going to feel. Go ahead, Joe.
Just to clarify, do you believe that he temporarily should step down or permanently step down? And then what are the biblical reasons that he should temporarily step down or permanently step down?
So the question was, should he temporarily step down or permanently step down? What do you think about the Bible? I think that the last hour honestly answered that. But I'll summarize again, because I base my decision on the facts of the situation. Obviously, the Bible does say that a man is supposed to be ruling his house well, having his children in subjection with all gravity. The Bible says that fathers are not supposed to provoke their children unto wrath. And I think based on those few verses, it appears there's a blind spot because his 4 children are attacking him. So that's where I would say there's definitely an issue. If he could potentially resolve that, then maybe, you know, in a short time, then maybe you could say, well, he's got himself back on the right track and we're just going to move forward. But he could just be, it's already over and just needs to just deal with it. or it's gonna not happen, and so he needs to just deal with it. Does that at least satisfy what you're trying to ask me?
Another question I have is, and this goes for like anyone, I guess, who's a pastor. If they have adult children who are adults, and then they start to rebel, would that father still be responsible for those adult children?
Okay, so the question was about what do I think about adult children and how that affects a pastor? Well, I think that at some point, and this is my personal opinion at this point. My personal opinion is at some point, at some age, it probably doesn't matter what a child would do, I'm not gonna hold it against a pastor. Maybe that's 25, maybe that's 30. I think at some point, when someone's an adult, like, it doesn't make sense to hold a pastor accountable for that person's free will decisions. I think, when we're evaluating this situation, it's children that are 23, 21, 19, and 17. And they're all having they're like having bitter hatred and wrath towards their father. And that's so fresh out of the home for so many, and even one still technically under his roof. Because he's saying she's kidnapped. Let's just be honest, if you said my daughter's kidnapped, that could only be true if she's still technically under your roof. So that would be a child that's supposed to be in his authority and under his subjection and under his gravity. So again, I'm just basing that on those facts. I don't know if that answers your question, or again, I would say there's gray as far as where that cutoff in the line is. I said publicly in that video that if a parent raised a reprobate kid, I would not disqualify him. I still believe that. I haven't changed anything in the video apart from just saying I think that, more information has come out and it's probably better for him to just focus on his family. That's really the only thing I'm changing. Brother Joe, or Joe.
If hypothetically that was true, what happened to the kids? What do you think they should have done about it afterwards? And if that were you in those shoes, how would you go about the situation as a teenager?
So the question is just what would I do or differently as a parent?
No. So hypothetically, if you were in their shoes.
Are you saying right now, or are you saying back then? I just want to make sure I
Let's say
understand.
pretend you're 20 years old and you're fresh out of leaving your parents' house, and they did all these things.
How should these children have responded, is what you're asking?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I think John says that in theory that he was trying to reach out to some pastors, but some of that's disingenuous because one of the pastors that he reached out to was Pastor Thompson, and all he did was just DM him on Instagram, and Pastor Thompson had never seen it because he didn't even look at Instagram. So he didn't give him a chance to necessarily even respond to the situation. There had already been a lot of issues with him and Pastor Jimenez and all this stuff, so the fact that he wasn't going to address this issue is not a huge shock or a surprise to me. I think that he did not exhaust his options of going to people that he should have gone to first. I think he could have clearly just maybe articulated an email or some communication that he sent to Pastor Jimenez or some of these people that he felt could help him. I don't think that privately recording a phone call with me and trying to get a gotcha moment on me is the right thing to do. I don't think going to a tranny and trying to just make as much damage as possible. And again, he said, I just want to get it out there as public as possible. It wouldn't matter if he had just uploaded on a random video, it would have still gotten all the attention.
Right.
It just wouldn't have gotten as much reprobate attention. Which, wow, do I really need that? If I really care about what's right? Look, Absalom was wrong in every decision that he made. But that didn't change the fact that David had done something wrong too. Okay? And so I don't justify the actions of these kids. I'm not saying that it should have stayed quiet, but I do think that the way they're handling this is completely inappropriate, and it should have been tried to be dealt with privately. Again, and I say privately in the sense that addressing people that can actually help and give concern. Now here's the thing: if he went to several pastors and several leaders and was very clear and gave them lots of opportunity and made it abundantly clear, what the situation is, and no one's helping him, and then he decides to go public in a respectful way, I'm not going to necessarily throw stones. I still think he shouldn't attack your parents. I still think he doesn't have to. Because here's the thing, if you believe that God's going to deal with situations, I don't think you necessarily have to attack your parents. I think he's exaggerating about a lot of things that are being said anyways. There isn't this scandal of abuse that's being covered up. It's just more that they are mad at their dad and they're just saying a lot of exaggerated things. Doesn't mean that they weren't punished the way that they described. It doesn't mean that they didn't witness things that maybe crossed some lines. It's just simply It's not right. And look, there's so many kids in this world that have had way worse upbringings and family situations and are not attacking their parents and are being kind to them. So, again, whatever my opinion is, though, it's my opinion. I could be wrong. I still think that what they're doing is inappropriate. I'm never going to kidnap my brother's kids, period. It wouldn't matter what they were telling me. So, I think that was wrong too. But does that answer your question, at least to some degree?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think about like the temporary disqualification. We look at like discipline, like when somebody does something wrong, agree to sin, but then they have to leave for a time till they get right and welcome back. The gray areas of disqualification, we're not looking at it in some way that it's not clear that hey, they get opportunity to get that right, but they don't feel qualified.
Yeah, your question is, what do I think about temporary disqualification or leave of absence? Of course, I agree with that because that's what I said. At the end of the day, I've suggested things like that to him, and he does not like anything that I have to say about that right now. So,
I agree.
I'm just trying to be honest with you guys. I'm being completely transparent about how I feel about it, and I'm trying to be transparent about things at this point that I'm not going to necessarily change my opinion on. Of course, at the time, I was basing my decisions on the facts that I had and giving him benefit of the doubt. At this point, I'm just trying to be honest with the facts that I know for sure.
So from my understanding, faithful word, Pastor Anderson, Mrs. Anderson, they had a meeting, right? And,
Yes.
And from what I heard from Pastor Anderson, he said his church was behind him, and they wanted him to continue. Now, we're independent churches, right? Why
Yes.
can't we just leave that decision up to them? That's what they want. Why get involved? Because I just feel like you getting involved and making a statement is just going to add fuel.
Yeah, question is, why do I even make a statement? I think, generally speaking, as opposed to just saying nothing. This is why, and I tried to explain it in a previous statement. If I don't say something, Brother Goodwin, people in this room are going to tell other people what I believe about this. And it's going to be even weirder and worse when you have all these people fighting about what my opinion is. And I think it's going to be a disservice to y'all. It's going to make this thing go longer than it needs to. And it's not going to allow us to have any kind of healing or repair to the situation. So I think what makes more sense is to just one time state it and move on. And I'm done. I'm not going to fight him. I'm not going to attack him. This is not going to be a I hate Pastor Anderson church, which some of those exist. And that's never going to be this church, ever. And I won't appreciate any slander towards him or his wife or his kids or any of this stuff. Like, we should just all I agree with you, mind our own business and focus on our church, period. And if his church supports him and he's going to continue pastoring, that's their thing. I can't affect that anyways. I can't affect anything but this church directly. And so, I think this is why we're having our meeting private and dealing with it right now. And if people disagree with me, I totally get it. I've had many people say, like, I don't even think you should say something, but I'm just trying to explain why it's still the right decision. So, I know we've taken a while. I don't want to leave something unresolved. So if you have something seriously unresolved at this point, I want you to still address it. But Brother Sampson.
You don't mind. Number one, issue of him and his wife him being abusive. All I've heard is that it's consensual. The two of them say it's consensual. That's the end of it. Doesn't matter to you what they do, how they do it. That I don't see that as about abuse in any form. If the two of them are sincere that it was consensual. I don't want anybody to ever tell me and my wife what we can do in our home. With the kids, I come from a large family. Most of the people I know in the church have small, and they have 12 kids, but they're young. I'm the second youngest, and I'm 56. The first crop of my brothers and sisters, the first three, had a lot of animosity for my parents. My parents were young when they had 16 years old. My mother was when she had a person. They weren't perfect parents. They had to learn and grow. They made some mistakes with those kids. The relationships were strained. So when those kids turned 17, 18, we moved out of home, they went about their way. The second crop, a little later, because my parents learned more. And they got better at parenting. My younger brother and I never saw any of it. The stories we hear from the older ones didn't exist when we grew up. We grew up in the same house. They were never gone from the family. They were always there. The difference between my family and this situation, and only this situation right now, is all of my brothers and sisters supported, were there for my parents until the day they died. They left for a time, and there's an example of that in the Bible, but they returned and came back. They never turned it back. They never publicly slandered them, but personal relationships in the family, they had problems with some of the things that went on. You have to understand too, just like we say kids, the age of understanding, when do they get saved? Every one of us is different. The age of adulthood and becoming your own independent thinker is different too. I moved out of the home when I was 17. Every single one of my brothers and sisters, 9 of us, left home when we were 17, 18, soon as we graduated high school. Never to return home and burden and live with my parents again. We were adults from that day forward. It didn't matter what my parents said or thought. When I moved out, got an apartment, bought a truck, went to work, at ExxonMobil where I work now, it wouldn't matter. So these kids, now that they're out of the house, if she's 17 and she thinks she's old enough to make a decision, move out and live on her own, go ahead. That should not be held accountable to him. I don't think that a pastor or a father or a parent are responsible for adult children once they move out of the house and they're making their own decisions. What I did hear from what Pastor said, and I thank Pastor Shelley because he's articulated all of this better than I've heard anyone. First of all, I can understand Pastor Anderson's viewpoint. He ruled his house according to the Bible. I have no doubt. And it's a level of discipline with a veil got to a place where the children were laughing and mocking it because it didn't hurt. They invoked him to raise the ant-killer. You mentioned an extension cord. The first gift we got my mother for Mother's Day as children was a portable radio with a detachable electric cord. We had no idea that thing would become a disciplinary tool. Many whippings I caught with that extension cord because I too got to a point where a paddle or a belt wasn't getting the job. Now, 2x4, pop off the wall. The punishment is proper. Were they abusing me? No. Every single instant we caught, we did something to deserve that. So, just like this, they're not angels. They did something. He didn't wake up in the morning and desire to whip his kids. Something had to happen. They have to be held accountable. If he raised the ante and enforced the rules in his house, he has rules in his house, biblical rules, and he's enforcing, he's ruling his house. But every kid is going to get to a point where they make a decision in their mind, they're mature enough, they don't agree with it. If when they leave home, now they want to talk about it, did he not rule his house? That's the citizen. He had rules, he enforced it. He didn't willfully let them break it. If there came a point when he decided maybe they are at an age they're going to make decisions, so I need to back off and let them have it, and let them learn, let them make decisions, but let them make mistakes. And you learn from mistakes. You don't learn from praise. You learn from pain, anger, mistakes. If we're not allowed to make mistakes as children and get up, then you're going to go off into the world and make some terrible mistakes. The Michael ain't getting a penitentiary. So we were allowed as children to make certain mistakes and then learn from the mistakes. I could understand very well what Pastor Anderson thinks, and it's saying he did nothing wrong. I believe, he honestly believes, he enforced the rules in his house, each instance different, every item, and enforced it at a level that it needs to be addressed in his house. I don't believe one second he abused the children or intentionally abused the children in any way. And if you think...
And Brother Samson, I appreciate your statements, and I'm agreeing with what you're saying in a big picture, but I don't want to allow everybody to just have a public statement. And so I want to be gracious because I appreciate the words that you said, and I appreciate your opinion. But here's the thing, I wanted to limit this to questions just because I think everybody has very valid opinions about this and strong opinions, and I appreciate your opinion on this. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at things from a factual perspective. And I think we could all justify his actions. People could condemn his actions from two different sides of this aisle. But the fact is he has 4 children publicly attacking him. And so I'm just looking at these things from a fact perspective. If his 4 children had the exact same upbringing and we're not doing that, then we would all just be moving along and it would be fine. But you can't just ignore the fact that both him and his wife are publicly attacking his kids. His kids are attacking him. And it's causing an unnecessary amount of strife and bitterness and division amongst a lot of Christians, not for a biblical reason. When there's division and contrary opinion on the reprobates or salvation by faith or which Bible to use, I'm willing to divide all day long. But this is not really a division. Like, we shouldn't allow personal dramas to divide the cause of Christ like this, and that's why I'm making the decisions that I'm making. I'm not gonna comment on his parenting, whether it was justified or not, because frankly speaking, none of us know, and we can all have our own personal opinions. I simply gave a little bit of a narrative based on the facts that I have to help people have some idea, because I think for most people, it's like, how in the world could this even happen? How in the world could this be true? How can we see these things, and then how can I not make a similar mistake potentially? So that's why I did that. But no, I appreciate your comments. I'm willing to talk to you after this, but for this setting, I just don't want to have any public statements anymore, okay? You have another question?
Yeah, obviously when you have people accusing somebody of something, and there's 2 conflicting stories on both sides, you would usually bring witnesses, you bring it before the church in a controversy, and that's what they did. They had 2 conflicting sides that oppose one another. They obviously put them in the church, and you judge the matter based on whether they have, isn't that biblical in the eyes of God, and that's fine.
Okay, so the question is, they brought witnesses and they did decision. Well, here's the thing, they didn't bring the kids in. They did not deal with it the way you're describing it. So I just don't really agree with the statement. Obviously, even Solomon is kicked out of the church and did not have a chance to describe his opinion on the situation. So regardless of what you think is right or wrong, that situation just didn't happen. Again, I'm trying to limit this to questions. If you have one, I'm just going to let another minute or two, but if you have some question that you want me to respond to, I'm willing to do it right now.
Hypothetically, if he gets stepped down temporarily, whether that means to say the word, and secondarily to that, is there anything that
I don't. He said hypothetically, Pastor Anderson stepped down. What would happen? I don't know, because I'm not going to deal with hypotheticals, because I personally don't think it's going to happen. So I don't think it matters.
Your situation weren't really resolved, and that before all this continued to have really, maybe that's settled a little bit, but they still just don't have the relationship with their parents. But the other 8 children turn out well. They turn out, much better than say all the 4 and all that. Do you say that perhaps at least in general these schools as well, that these standards?
So the question is, if things just continue as they are, but the other kids come out better, what is my opinion on that? Well, here's the thing. Like I said, time always tell. You're going to reap what you sow. God is in control. And so whatever fruit comes of that will come. I mean, here's the thing. I made a post on Facebook. Some people may have seen it. But if you were in our church, Steadfast Baptist Church, when I became the pastor, there was a lot of issues in the church. This church had all kinds of heresy, carnality, strife, weirdos, freaks, unresolved problems. But there were still good people in this church getting people saved. So it was a mixed bag. It wasn't like all bad, but it had some serious issues. If a pastor continues to pastor unqualified, even if that's just objectively true from God's perspective, that doesn't mean that those people wouldn't be getting people saved potentially, or that person couldn't preach the Bible and preach right things. Because frankly speaking, we see that in the Bible, people doing the wrong things and still being used by God. Obviously, the time will tell and the fruit will be evident of whatever the situation is. God willing, what you just said would be true, that his other kids will turn out great anyways, and I hope so. But at the same time, if he alters his parenting significantly because of this, and then they turn out differently, you would almost have to say, well, maybe I did something wrong, right? And then again, what does God want to happen? I don't know. That's up to God. God's going to control this situation. I can only affect us and our church. The reason why I want to make a public statement is for your benefit and for the fact that there'll be, in my opinion, less drama. I'm not saying it won't cause drama. I'm saying I think it'll be the least. So that's why I think that would be the best move. Regardless of what I do or what he does, God will always, be in control of these situations. And if God wants a pastor to step down, it's going to happen, folks. Happen with Romero. If he wants it to happen, it'll happen. If he doesn't, it won't. And I know this: all things are going to work together for good, for them to love God. If you love Pastor Anderson, you want us to go to his church and be friends with him no matter what he does, I'm not going to fight you. If you want to never have anything to do with him and you don't like him and whatever, I'm not going to fight you. But I will fight you if you slander anybody. I will fight you if you rail on people. If you strongly disagree with somebody in this room on this opinion, that's fine. But we need to be nice to that person, shake that person's hand, love that person, be gracious to that person, understand that we all have strong opinions and emotions right now, and say, hey, I can see what you're saying. I just don't agree. We're friends. It's not, you're wicked for believing that, or you're evil, or you're a bad person, or whatever. I think that's wrong. And there's some people doing that, and I would encourage them to stop.
Would you say that how King David treated King Saul would be a good example of how maybe we should treat the situation?
Obviously, David, separated himself and tried to stay away from Saul, but he was trying to actively kill him. So I don't know that we could ever say this is a perfect parallel, but of course, David always loved his enemies, and I think that was a good example. And of course, we should always follow biblical examples. I'm going to go to Jimmy real quick.
So it's kind of just falling into two camps. Those that support PSA and those that don't. I mean, I hate to oversimplify it, but it sounds like you're kind of trying to, which I think is smart, to kind of walk those two lines of like, well, of course, he's my brother, I still love him and support him, but I think these are these actions. How can you codify that into a simple message that is easily understood? Like, are you in the camp if I support him?
Not everything's simple, and I think that what you said is a way oversimplification, because there's almost no one, I believe, that has the exact same viewpoint on this situation. Everybody has completely different opinions. So, I think that in a complicated situation, we have to stick to facts. That's why I think my approach is the right approach. Here are the facts. Here's my opinion. Here's what I'm moving for. And encouraging people to not hate the brethren and love one another and to just move on. It's not our drama entirely. In fact, it's just not at all, period.
Good.
And whatever we think, it doesn't matter. I literally can't do anything to affect his children. I can't do anything to affect him right now, honestly, because he won't talk to me about it. So, okay, well, I'm just letting you know how I'm going to handle it and for our church. And if you get mad at me, if you hate me, I'm still your friend. If you quit my church, I'll still be your friend. If you whatever you do, I'm still for you, and I'll still be a pastor that I can love you. And, people have called me and said, I don't want to come to church anymore. And I'm like, okay, but if you want to come back, if you want me to help you, if you need something, you want to talk, I'm here. And that's how I feel. I'm not going to hate on people. Of course, I want no one to quit, but I'm just saying, that's my stance. Brother Alberto, do you want to say something? Or ask me a question? I'm sorry.
Yes, I have a question. Let's say Pastor Anderson were to come out and say that he admits that he needs to step down and focus on his family, and so he's willing to, because Brother Corbin is the deacon of the church, right, paperwork. So let's say for sure that he was unqualified as a pastor. Like, do you think that he would still have a right to lay hands on Brother Corbin to be the pastor of paperwork, or do you have another answer for that?
I don't know. It's such a hypothetical that I'm really not going to worry about it. I don't have a strong opinion either way. If someone stepped down and pointed somebody else, I mean, you can see that example of Aaron. But just off the top of my head, just thinking like Aaron's technically like giving, the next appointee the position. I think even Moses, God was mad at Moses, but Moses passed it down onto Joshua. So I would never fight somebody if that were the situation. But at the end of the day, I think it's speculative and it's probably not going to happen, so I'm not worried about it.
Miriam was 18, moved out, and all these kids came out in your life. Would this be an issue at this point?
It's not an age thing because I already told you the reason why I made my decisions. It's not based on anything that I didn't say. So it's based on the fact that the timing of doxing Clint, it's based on 4 children are against him, and it's against that he's making public attacks at them that's causing division.
Aside from those things, doxing and the public attacks, and the with the children, 18, out of the house, and you're coming back and making accusations. Where do you draw the line as an adult? That's kind of what I was.
I answered a question earlier about the age, and I said something around 25 to 30 in my mind. I would never hold that against the pastor. I think that they're recently in the house. I said they're 23, 21, 19, and 17. By his own admission, she's kidnapped. So by his own admission, she's under his authority and subjection in theory. And so I feel like that addresses what you're asking me.
If she was insinuated and happening, at some point where you go on the opinion of the age versus the Bible, how do you hold that accountable? Does that create an open door for people to realize, hey, if I want to make a statement or bring accusations and try to bring it in, how does that work? I get it.
I just don't really want to play hypotheticals because I just don't know. You know, every situation is different. There's an unlimited number of hypotheticals here. I'm just trying to address things that I know to be true. You know, as far as like, I'm not basing anything on a hair decision of like she's 17 and like 11 months or 18. Like that doesn't matter to me. Like that's not a deciding factor here.
I just want to try to find out what does the pre-son's testimony have to do with the situation they're out of the house. Against Miriam, this is more a Miriam issue.
Yeah.
You're not willing versus how do you hold somebody accountable after that? They walk away. This really is at heart this issue.
Sure. If again, I'll try to address your question the best I can. If a pastor has a 23-year-old that's not in the house and he just doesn't like his dad, I'm not going to say he's disqualified. If he has a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old that doesn't like him, he's not disqualified. If all 4 of his most recent children that are 23, 21, 19, and 17 are making public attack videos against him, going on trainees channels, and then the dad and the mom are attacking their children and causing unnecessary strife and division, then I think that should be said, hey, maybe we should step aside because this isn't good for the cause of Christ. So I'm basing my decision on the facts, not just whether or not a kid likes their parents. And even if there was one kid, I said publicly, if a kid was literally a reprobate, I'm saying an actual God-hating, sodomite reprobate, I would not call for that pastor's resignation. But if he had 4 reprobates in a row, I probably would. And I'm saying that's a discretion decision, right? And again, even if I personally believe that, that does not mean that it's true. Because it's a gray area. I don't want to play a hypothetical of what if this person was 19, 20, 23, if they said it this way, what if they went to this video, like, I don't know. I do know what is happening though. Sure.
Just want to draw a line of a specific, under the roof, under the authority, and then have the.
Well, according to him, I mean, if you say your kid's kidnapped, isn't she under your roof?
Right.
Okay, so that's where I stand on that issue. It's not an age thing because it's gray. Some people would say 16 is an adult, and I'm not even fighting them on that. But I'm just trying to be honest with what I know to be fact. Okay, I'm not gonna have any more questions. I think almost everything that's gonna be addressed has probably been addressed. But if you're like, man, I wish I'd thought of this or whatever, you're always welcome to still talk to me, call me. I don't think there's a single person in this room that could say, I've reached out to Pastor Shelley and he did not respond to me. Can anybody say that right now? Yeah. So you have no excuse to say that I've reached out to Pastor Shelley and he has not responded to me. If you want to, I'm always open. I am your pastor. I love you guys. We have an opportunity to set an example of charity as a church, to unify around Christ, to love one another. And I'm not going to preach my sermon this morning. I do want to go to, I think I want to go to one place in Scripture though. And I want to go to Ephesians chapter 4, and we'll finish this morning. And I apologize how long this has been. I apologize for how difficult this has been. I'll take some ownership and say maybe I've made things worse, and I apologize for anything that I've done to make things worse. I felt like it was necessary for me to address and figure out what's going on based on the timing of our kids' conference, based on the fact that I had them scheduled to preach, based on the fact that I have a close relationship with them, and based on the fact that 99% of our church really has some strong connection to one of our friends. If I did something wrong, I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. I'm a man just like you guys, okay? And if you don't like my decision making, you are very welcome to have that opinion. This has been very hard, and it's going to continue to be hard. But I think that we can address the situation, come together as a church, and move forward, and then I think our church continue to thrive.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, if you love Pastor Anderson, the best thing you can do is make Steadfast Baptist Church thrive. Because that continues to solidify the fact that he was such a great guy and started a great movement with some great people that are not about a personality, but are about Christ. And you know what gives him a lot of glory is you serving Christ. You attacking people, getting out of church, stop soul winning, stop doing the right thing, just proves that you weren't here for the right motives, or you're allowing the devil to win.
Right.
What we need to do is allow God to win. And here's the thing, my opinion does not stop God's will from happening, folks. If you think that I'm wrong and Pastor Anderson's right 100%, my opinion will not stop that. Me making one-time clarification publicly would never stop that in a million years. Okay?
Right.
If I have supported him 100% and I was wrong, that would not stop God's will from happening. I think you have to just put your faith in God right now and realize that God will make sure that whatever needs to happen will happen.
Right.
We cannot fight against God.
Right.
And I will not fight against God. But that does not mean I can't, that does not mean I'm going to avoid making difficult decisions. And I'm forced to make some difficult decisions, whether you like them or not. But at the end of the day, I will protect our church. I will do what's right for our church, even if it's at my own detriment. And frankly speaking, I love Pastor Anderson. I have a super close friendship with him. And the last thing I want to do is ruin that. But if that's what's better for our church, I will make that decision. And, you know, every decision I'm going to make is going to be with Christ and the Bible in mind first. You guys, and what's best for the cause of Christ for y'all second. And then, you know, in theory, what would be for me third. But that's what I would want. But I'll be honest with you, sometimes I want to be selfish and do what's only best for my family. And I'm not saying I wouldn't make that decision. And I care more about my kids, way more than about y'all. Okay? And more important than whatever happens about this church, I'll just be honest, I would rather my kids love me and have a great relationship with them than, you know, have a big church or something. You know, I'm just being honest with you. I would rather have a small church and my family love me and have a great relationship with them than have a giant church and have what he's going through. And maybe it's completely unfair, maybe it's completely unjust, and he's a Job and I can't see it. But I'm telling you, I'm basing my decisions on the behavior I've seen of him and facts. That's it. Not accusations, not he said, she said, not I don't know, just the facts of the situation. And I'm trying to do that because I'm trying to help you realize in controversy, we should base our decisions on facts. Not feelings, not accusations, not he said, she said. And I think a lot of people are very quick to just believe anyone on both sides. Some people are just believing all kinds of wild, crazy things against Pastor Anderson that I believe are just flat untrue. And some people are just saying, I don't care what Pastor Anderson does. I am going to show zero disagreement. And I think that we should all have a healthy level of disagreement. Okay? And we need to allow that in our lives. I've had people tell me I'm doing things wrong. Pastor friends tell me I'm doing things wrong, and I can still be their friend and whatever. You know? And that's okay. But we have to take in consideration what the Bible really wants us to do. In Ephesians chapter 4, I think addresses this. It says in verse 1, I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you that you walk worthy of the vocation wherewith you are called, with all lowliness and meekness, with long suffering, forbearing one another in love, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. Every decision you make right now, please do something for me. Endeavor to keep unity. say, is the decision that I'm making right now to keep unity? And you say, well, what about your decision to go public? Well, here's the thing, going public is to keep us unified. Because if I don't, y'all are all going to have your own versions and stories and opinions and whatever about what I think, and it's going to cause more problems, in my opinion. If I just make a one-time clarification and in a spirit and attitude of grace and calling for people to give each other grace here and to unify, I think that's the best move. And I think that every decision, when you're trying to talk to anybody thinking about this, when you do online, when you don't do online, please do it in a spirit of charity and grace and with the idea of unity here. Obviously, I'm not unifying with sodomites and reprobates and freaks and weirdos and slanderers and all them. I will never side with them. They are wrong, they are wicked, they are evil. I want nothing to do with them. But I am for every Christian, and I want to keep as much unity amongst Christians as possible. It sometimes won't be. But we're independent about church. And you know, I don't want to put you in a crisis situation where you have to be like picking which side you want to be on to stay in this church. I don't want you to be in a crisis situation where you have to pick what pastor you like to stay in this church. That's good. You should be able to stay in this church because you want to be here because of this.
Amen.
And every decision should be based on unity, not on your personal opinion about the situation.
Right.
Because everyone could probably talk for about 10 hours about how they feel about the situation right now. And that's great. But, you know, at the end of the day, is that going to help? And let's try to reduce the drama.
Yeah,
I think some of us have made it worse. I probably made it worse. I'm going to try my best to just stay out of it as much as I can apart from my therapy. I think that Christ is moving even in the midst of this. I came up with a really good sermon idea when I was talking with Pastor Anderson about this. And the Spirit of God's still here, folks. And the Spirit of, it's not like God is going to abandon Pastor Anderson no matter what's going on. He's not going to abandon me. He's not going to abandon y'all. He'll never leave us nor forsake us. Sometimes we can grieve him a little bit when we make a wrong decision. But you know what? Pastor Anderson is still a Spirit-filled man of God. And if him and his church keep going, I'm still going to look to him as a pastor, even if I disagree with him. Even if I think that it's not right. And I've done that to many other people. So it's not me being inconsistent about my position. If you have other questions, please let me deal with it. I hate it when people are mad at each other. It sucks. I love unity. And unity about things that matter. Your opinion on this is not a reason to not be friends with someone. We all are unified on salvation by faith, the King James Bible. We love children. We love being Baptist. Let us unify around these things that matter so much.
Amen.
And let us take heed to ourselves when making the right decisions for our family and for our church and for our walk with Christ. I love you guys, and again, I'm sorry I didn't preach my sermon yet. I'll probably preach my morning sermon this evening, but I'll be here all day. If you want to talk to me, I'm an open book. All right? Let's just close in prayer. Thank you, Heavenly Father, so much for our church. I pray that you would just help our friend Pastor Anderson and his wife, and that you help his family, and whatever is best for them, whatever could help them to reconcile and fix whatever issues may exist. That you just bring clarity, that you would help those who have done things wrong to take ownership for their wrong, to be humbled. I pray that those who love and care about their family would have a spirit of meekness, that they would be gracious and have charity towards them. I thank you so much for Pastor Anderson helping our church and how much he's been a blessing to us. I pray that you would just help our church to rally around Christ and to endeavor to keep unity. And I pray that you would help us to have a spirit of grace and charity right now towards one another and towards our friends and towards other Christians, and that we would not allow the devil to cause us to be in the flesh and to have hatred and bitterness and anger and wrath and to be mean-spirited and to fall for railing and for slander. I pray that you would help us to be encouraging, edifying, thinking on things that are good, and pray that you help us to focus on our